Welcome to my presentation on bridging early childhood special education to ABA, or Applied Behavioral Analysis. So to begin, we're going to start with what is ABA, then how to become a BCBA. We'll go over what I know about classroom management and ABA's uses in education, including direct teaching and incidental teaching. We'll go over how my educational background will help me, and then we'll go into aspects of ABA, such as what does it look like, behaviors, targets, and functions. Then we'll go over some theories that are used in education and ABA. We'll go over some interviews and observations, and then I'll explain a behavioral intervention plan example. And then we'll sum it all up and provide you with a list of references.
Applied Behavior Analysis, ABA, serving individuals with autism and other special needs. ABA uses the science of behavior to teach socially significant skills and reduce problem behaviors in meaningful ways. Goals may include improving communication, improving access to typical activities such as playing with friends, going to a restaurant, or sitting at school, and reducing disruptive behaviors. Treatment is provided in a natural environment, which can be in-home, at school, in the community, or at our learning centers. ABA is not exclusively for treating individuals with autism, but is seen as the most relevant and effective form of treatment for autism diagnosis. We have dedicated customer support teams who are here to answer your questions, explain your options, even educate you on what your private insurance or Medicaid insurance covers. We are in network with most major insurances and will walk you through the process of funding approval. The first step in receiving ABA therapy is to get an official diagnosis of autism from a qualified healthcare professional, such as a psychologist. The next step in beginning services is usually an assessment, where we get to spend time with your child and family to determine the most meaningful goals and most effective treatment program. This includes outlining recommended hours per week and whether services will take place in your home, at school, in the community, at one of our learning centers, or some combination of these options. Our highly trained staff will provide learning and growing opportunities for your child in their natural environment and activities, such as play. Your team will have supervision by a board-certified behavior analyst, BCBA, and will constantly keep data to ensure the success of goals and programs. Our goal is simple: to foster growth and new possibilities for every child and family we work with.
That video does really delve into what ABA is, but let's go a little bit further. So, ABA stands for Applied Behavioral Analysis. It's the science of behavior. It focuses on behaviors of social significance. Socially significant behaviors include all of those that are needed to function within our society. So, at home, at school, in a grocery store, just walking down a street, basically anywhere. ABA breaks down complex behavior chains into teachable steps. It helps to reduce and replace behaviors. It is backed by data and serves learners from ages 18 months to 21 years of age. So how do we become a BCBA? Well, first of all, BCBA stands for Board Certified Behavioral Analyst. I have provided a live link to an outside resource for more information here. But a master's degree in ABA is required for anyone looking to become a BCBA. In order to enter a master's program, you have to have a background in either psychology, social work, or education, which is why we're here today. And this presentation is going to explain how my educational background will further benefit my future career. The master's program has to incorporate verified course sequences, which are outlined by the Association for Behavioral Analysts International. The VCS consists of 315 hours of study in subjects specific to BCBA Code of Ethics, philosophical approaches of behavior analysis, experimental design and measurement, behavioral interventions, behavioral assessment, and supervision and management. All BCBA certification programs, even the ones online, include some type of field work where experiences are made with direct patient contact. But to get your BCBA certification, you need a total of 2,000 hours of supervised field work. And that's all before taking the BCBA certification exam after graduation from a master's program. However, there is a stepping stone, something that comes before BCBA, and that's their assistant, or BCABA. And the assistant helps with support tasks such as collecting data, observing ABA sessions, writing progress reports. As they gain experience, the assistant spends more time engaging with patients and putting research methodology into action in order to prepare for certification. They also assist in training behavioral technicians. Someone who wants to earn a BCABA certification must obtain a bachelor's degree from an ABAI accredited program or complete related degrees that include eligible ABA coursework. After finishing 1,000 to 1,300 hours of supervised fieldwork, graduates must pass the BCABA certification exam. So either route, there is an exam. Classroom management refers to the techniques and strategies that teachers use to create and maintain a productive and orderly learning environment in their classrooms. Effective classroom management involves combination of proactive measures such as establishing clear rules and routines, building positive relationships with students, and providing engaging and challenging instruction, as well as reactive measures such as addressing misbehavior promptly and consistently. The ultimate goal of classroom management is to create a safe and supportive learning environment that enables all students to reach their full potential. Effective classroom management can help to reduce disruptions and distractions, increase student engagement, and motivate and improve academic achievement. Some examples of applied behavioral analysis in the classroom are when teachers take the time to learn how to determine the motivation and purposes of behavior, understand how to deliver reinforcements and consequences, and modify the classroom environment to promote appropriate behavior. It all goes back to building relationships, and that's not only used in education, but in ABA as well. Classroom management ABA goes a long way in education. According to Alberto and Troutman, positive reinforcement has been widely used in programs designed to teach students in general and special education a variety of skills, both adaptive and academic. Examples of ABA application used in schools is pictured here. So, some examples that ABA can help with include problem behavior for reduction. So, aggression, bullying, disruption, off task behaviors, and property destruction. Now, in any of these instances, the behavior is going to have to be clearly defined because what looks like aggressive behavior for one student isn't going to look like aggressive behavior for the next student. So one student could be actively engaging in aggressive behaviors by flipping desks or chairs, throwing stuff, destroying things, hitting, pinching, biting, kicking, whereas another student could be aggressively tapping their pencil, aggressively flapping their hands. It just looks different from student to student. So everything has to have a clear-cut definition as to what the behavior that we're looking at is. So we also help with skill acquisition, appropriate communication strategies, improve student performance in math, reading and writing, safety skills, and social skills. And as we stated before, ABA is all about social behaviors. Now, the appropriate communication strategies, ABA is actually designed to help teach functional communication systems, and that can include using tablets or what's called picture exchange communication system, where the child learns to communicate by exchanging pictures. And this is taught in steps and taught with different levels of communication as well. So another form of ABA in education are teaching strategies. So behavioral skills training, descriptive praise statements, direct instruction, opportunities to respond, self-monitoring, task analysis, and video modeling. Task analysis is something that's used frequently in ABA through what's called discrete trial teaching. And video modeling is the same as just modeling in person, but through videos. So, problematic behaviors, skill teaching, and strategies influenced by ABA are often written into IEPs and behavioral intervention plans. These are all useful for students, not just those with special needs, though. A lot of this can be brought into a general education classroom and help students that don't have special needs or any kind of cognitive delays. So, during my research, I came across these two quotes that I found especially meaningful. According to Burning Glass Technologies, there is a growing number of disciplined ABA providers who are trained in educational context to facilitate learning for all students. So that goes back to using ABA techniques and strategies not just in special education, but in general education classrooms also. It's useful for everyone. And then BCBAs can assist the team with identifying and defining student concerns and goals, assessing relevant functional environment behavior relations, developing and implementing evidence based educational programs and interventions, data collection and progress monitoring, and data based decision making. Continuing with ABA in education, an article by Sion Krischel outlines that there are 5 teaching strategies specific to ABA that are widely believed to work well in classrooms for both improving behavior and learning. First is discrete trial teaching, which I have provided a live link here for. But DTT is teaching skills in smaller, more broke down parts to teach smaller sub skills individually using cue and response structure. This is a very structured, very specific way of teaching. Then we have naturalistic teaching, or NAT, which is child driven. They set the pace for learning throughout their natural environment and routines. It's very play based and it includes a lot of incidental teaching. Then there's pivotal response treatment, another naturalistic teaching method that targets certain areas of development instead of individual behavior. Then we use token economy, which is all about reinforcers. Tokens can be exchanged or even be rewards themselves. And then 5, contingent observations, which is a mild form of timeout used for young children. Although timeout is not very widely used in schools or preschool settings anymore. However, we do use this. They're called cozy corners or safe spaces. And it's a place where a student can go to calm their body and relax and get themselves regulated before returning to a group activity or other kind of setting that needs them to focus. Some more concepts of ABA used in education include extinction burst. I've provided a link here to an outside source, but extinction burst refers to a temporary increase in undesirable behavior when previously reinforced behavior is no longer rewarded or reinforced. It's a concept derived from behavior analysis and operant conditioning. In operant conditioning, behaviors are strengthened or weakened based on their consequences. When a behavior is consistently reinforced, it tends to increase the frequency. However, if the reinforcement is removed, the behavior may initially increase before eventually decreasing or extinguishing. During the extinction process in education, when a teacher or educator stops providing reinforcement for a particular behavior that was previously reinforced, such as giving attention, rewards, or praise, the student might initially respond with an extinction burst. This burst refers to an intensification of the targeted behavior, a last-ditch effort to regain a previously reinforced response. When using extinction burst procedures in ABA, the reinforcement for the targeted behavior is systematically removed. This is done to reduce or eliminate the occurrence of behavior over time. However, during the initial stages of extinction, an extinction burst may occur. Behavioral analysts and ABA practitioners are trained to anticipate and understand extinction burst. They recognize that the increased behavior during the burst is a sign that the behavior is being challenged and that the individual is testing the environment to see if the reinforcement will return. So, how is extinction burst used in ABA? Well, in applied behavioral analysis, extinction burst is used as a planned and deliberate strategy to reduce or eliminate undesired behaviors. Here's how it's used. 1. Identify the target behavior. The first step is to clearly define the behavior that is being targeted for modification. This could be disruptive behavior such as tantrums, aggression, or attention-seeking behavior. Now, you cannot just say look for tantrums or look for aggression. You have to specifically define what aggression or a tantrum looks like. And then you can go from there. 2. Implement extinction. Once the target behavior is identified, the reinforcement that previously maintained the behavior is systematically removed. This means that the behavior will no longer be rewarded or reinforced. 3. Expect and prepare for extinction burst. ABA practitioners anticipate that the extinction burst will likely occur when the reinforcement is removed. They prepare themselves and others involved in the behavior change process for the temporary increase in the undesired behavior. 4. Withhold reinforcement during the extinction burst. During the extinction burst, it is crucial to maintain consistency and not reinforce the undesired behavior. This means not providing attention, rewards, or any other form of reinforcement that the behavior previously relied on. 5. Monitor and record data. ABA practitioners closely monitor the behavior during the extinction process and record data to track its frequency, intensity, and duration. This data helps assess whether the behavior decreases over time despite the initial burst. 6. Promote alternative behaviors. As the undesired behavior decreases during the extinction process, ABA practitioners simultaneously reinforce and promote alternative desired behaviors. This involves providing positive reinforcement for appropriate behaviors that are the alternatives to the undesired behaviors. 7. Evaluate progress and adjust strategies. Throughout the extinction process, ABA practitioners continuously evaluate the effectiveness of the intervention. They consider factors such as the severity of the behavior, the individual's motivation, any environmental variables that may influence the behavior. Based on the assessment, they make the adjustments to the intervention plan to optimize behavior change outcomes. By understanding and utilizing extinction burst within the framework of ABA, practitioners can effectively reduce or eliminate undesired behaviors over time. It is important to note that the process requires consistency, patience, and careful monitoring to ensure the success of the behavior change efforts. ABA can also be used for manifestation determination. I provided a link to an outside source, but manifestation determination is a process mandated by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. It is used to determine whether a student's behavior that led to a disciplinary action is a manifestation of their disability or not. The process is typically applied to students who have been identified as having a disability and are receiving special education services. When a student with a disability engages in a behavior that may warrant disciplinary action, the school must convene a manifestation determination review. The purpose of the review is to examine the relationship between the student's disability and their behaviors in question. The steps to a manifestation determination are: 1. Review the relevant information. 2. Evaluation of the relationship. 3. Consideration of an IEP. 4. Decision-making. And 5. Functional behavioral assessment, or FBA. So can a BCBA help in a manifestation determination? Well, because it's a process that's relevant to the field of applied behavioral analysis when applied in an educational setting, ABA can play a significant role. They can help by providing valuable insights and information regarding the relationship between the student's disability and their behavior. Here are a few ways. 1. Functional behavioral assessments, or FBAs. ABAs often employ functional behavior assessments to understand the function or purpose of a student's behavior. When conducting a manifestation determination, an FBA can help determine if the behavior in question is related to the student's disability. By identifying the underlying function of the behavior, ABA can contribute to the assessment of whether the behavior is a manifestation of the disability or not. 2. Behavioral intervention plans, or BIPs. ABA emphasizes the development and implementation of behavior intervention plans to address challenging behaviors. If the manifestation determination process confirms that the behavior is a manifestation of the student's disability, ABA can be used to develop an appropriate BIP. The BIP will outline strategies and interventions based on the principles of behavior analysis to address the behavior, teach alternative skills, and promote positive behavior change. 3. Data collection and analysis. ABA relies on systematic data collection and analysis to evaluate the effectiveness of interventions. In the context of manifestation determination, ABA can contribute by providing data and evidence-based observations of the students' behaviors. The data can help inform the team's decision-making process by providing objective information about the relationship between the behavior and the disability. And 4, IEP development. ABA principles are often incorporated into the development of individualized education programs, or IEPs, which outline the educational goals and supports for students with disabilities. ABA can contribute to the manifestation determination process by providing insights to appropriate and effective behavioral goals and interventions that can be included in the student's IEP.
In the direct teaching method, the teacher conveys information to the students by talking, and the students listen. Direct teaching is also known as direct instruction. This method can be used to convey new information, to give specific instructions, or to review important points. Direct teaching is often the first step to give students the information they need, so they can use it in learning the topic more thoroughly.
Hope you enjoyed that short video. Direct teaching is also known as explicit teaching or explicit instruction. It is a structured and systematic approach where teachers directly and explicitly present information and skills to the learners. It involves clear and direct communication of the concepts, strategies, or procedures, along with explicit modeling and guided practice. This can also be called scaffolding in ECE or special education terms. The goal of direct teaching is to provide explicit instruction that leaves little room for doubt and ensures that the learners acquire the intended knowledge or skills. In direct teaching, the teacher typically follows a predetermined sequence of instruction, breaking down complex concepts or skills into smaller, more manageable steps. This is also known as DTT in ABA. The steps are presented in logical and organized manner with a focus on clarity and simplicity. The teacher uses various instructional strategies such as lectures, demonstrations, modeling, questioning, and guided practice to actively engage learners in the learning process. The key features of direct teaching include clear learning objectives, explicit instruction, active engagement, scaffolded support, systematic feedback, and practice and repetition. Direct teaching being used in ABA is consistent with ABA principles, particularly in terms of clear instruction, systematic prompting, and reinforcement. ABA emphasizes the importance of clear and explicit instructions to ensure effective learning. Direct teaching aligns with the principle by providing explicit instructions and breaking down complex skills or concepts into smaller, more manageable steps. This looks like taking a whole task and breaking it down into tiny, tiny little pieces that can be accomplished step by step. So, hair brushing. If a child does not like their hair being brushed, then we work on just tolerating the brush being in their line of sight. Once that's mastered, then we work on tolerating it being brought near them. Once that's accomplished, we work on tolerating us touching it to their head. From there, it might go from 1 stroke, 2 strokes, brushing for 30 seconds, brushing for a minute, until eventually the child can tolerate their hair being brushed. It's just broken down into smaller steps that they can tolerate or do little bits at a time. So, ABA and direct teaching recognize the importance of reinforcement and prompting learning and behavior change. In ABA, reinforcement is used to strengthen desired behaviors, and direct teaching often incorporates reinforcement strategies to motivate learners and reinforce correct responses. Direct teaching in ABA is seen as discrete trial teaching.
All right, give me car. All right, give me 5. Wilson, great job. Car. All right, give me 5, Wilson, great job.
Here, like this.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
That video is a great example of incidental teaching. I've provided a link to an outside source for more information, but incidental teaching is an instructional approach that involves taking advantage of naturally occurring opportunities to teach and reinforce skills. It's often used in educational settings, particularly with individuals with special needs, such as those with autism spectrum disorder or other developmental delays. The goal of incidental teaching is to promote learning within a context of everyday activities and interactions. So things that occur naturally within the environment or present themselves just as you go throughout your day. In incidental teaching, the teacher or caregiver sets up the environment where the learner is likely to encounter situations that require certain skills or knowledge. In early childhood settings, we call these learning centers. So the room is set up with different opportunities to play and learn naturally. In special education, we follow a child's lead. It's child-led, and we take advantage of opportunities that present themselves as they go throughout their day. So, when a learner demonstrates an interest or initiates a behavior related to the targeted skill, the teacher then seizes the opportunity to provide immediate support, guidance, or instruction. The teaching is embedded within the ongoing activity or conversations, making it more natural and meaningful to the learner. And when it's more meaningful and natural, they tend to retain the information a little better. The focus is on capitalizing on the learner's motivation and curiosity to facilitate learning. Incidental teaching can be effective because it takes advantage of the learner's natural interests, motivations, and curiosities, making the learning experience more engaging and relevant. So how does my background in ECE and special education help? Well, there's a number of ways. 1. Understanding child development. A strong understanding of child development, which is a core aspect of ECE, can give ABA professionals insight into what behaviors and developmental milestones are typical for children at various ages. Here, I've provided a link to a milestone chart. This can help identify and address developmental delays or behavioral issues. 2. Experience with children. ECE involves a lot of hands-on experience with children, which can be invaluable in the field of ABA. This experience can help ABA professionals better understand children's needs, communicate effectively with them, and build relationships, which is a must in ABA. 3. Educational strategies. ECE training often involves learning about different teaching strategies and educational methodologies that can be useful in implementing ABA interventions. For instance, knowledge of how to create a conductive learning environment or how to use play as a teaching tool can be advantageous in the field of ABA. 4. Family and community engagement. ECE professionals are often trained to work closely with families and community resources, which can be a significant part of ABA professionals' role. They may need to collaborate with families to implement strategies at home or connect with families with additional resources. 5. Understanding of special education. My ECE background includes a focus on special education. I've provided a link to an outside source for more information, but this could be particularly helpful in ABA as many individuals who receive ABA therapy have developmental disorders such as autism or other cognitive delays. Knowledge of special education can help in designing and implementing appropriate behavioral interventions. It also can help with the development of BIPs or FBAs, which are the behavioral intervention plans or functional behavioral assessments. 6. Development of patience and empathy. Working in ECE requires a great deal of patience and empathy. Working in ABA is not a small feat. It is not for the faint of heart, and it takes a lot of dedication and love and determination to get through it. Skills that are also crucial in ABA include the development of patience and empathy. Professionals in both fields often work with individuals who may have difficulty communicating or who may exhibit challenging behaviors. In these instances, it is so important to remember to stay calm and work through it in a collective way that helps everyone that's involved. So what does ABA look like? Well, it's a systematic and data-driven approach to understanding and modifying behavior. It involves the application of behavioral principles and strategies to bring about positive behavior change and improve the quality of life for individuals. It can look like direct and implicit teaching, testing, or even simple play. Every opportunity to teach is taken and worked with. Other key components and characteristics of ABA include assessment, objective measurement, functional analysis, behavioral intervention plans, reinforcement, prompting, generalization and maintenance, data collection and analysis, individualized approaches, and ethical guidelines. We will go into more of these in just a few minutes. Some aspects of ABA include the 7 dimensions of ABA. I will go into more detail about these on the next slide, but for now, they are applied, behavioral, analytic, technological, affective, conceptually systematic, and generality. ABA relies on data collection. We observe, measure, record, and visually analyze. Data collection is used for assessment and program monitoring. This lets us know if what we are doing is working or if we need to change anything. Maximizing effectiveness and ensuring accountability, and practicing ethically. Data should never be falsified. We take data exactly as we see it. We do not change it. We do not make assumptions. We record exactly what we see. Here I've provided a chart that goes a little bit deeper into the 7 dimensions previously mentioned. So first, we have the dimension on one column and exactly what it is on the other column. Starting with behavioral. Behavior is observable and measurable. ABA is concerned with observable and measurable behavior. It emphasizes the objective assessment and analysis of behavior rather than relying on subjective interpretations or assumptions. That means that we have to exactly record what we see, and we have to be able to measure it. This dimension involves defining the behavior of interest in clear and measurable terms to ensure accurate data collection and analysis. As I stated previously in the presentation, one child's aggression is not going to look like another child's aggression. So the behavior has to be clearly defined and written out so that anyone can walk in, look at the definition, and go, yep, that's occurring without any kind of doubt. Applied, which means it has to be socially valid. ABA emphasizes the importance of focusing on socially significant behaviors that have practical importance and relevance to the individual's life. The goal is to address behaviors that enhance the person's functioning and quality of life, such as communication, social skills, academic performance, and daily living skills. Then we have technological, which means, is it replicable? Can anyone come in and replicate this? ABA requires that the procedures and interventions used to be clearly and precisely described so that others can replicate them. This dimension emphasizes the importance of documenting the specific steps and strategies used in behavior analysis to ensure that they can be implemented consistently and accurately. Conceptually systematic, which include the principles of ABA. ABA is based on a well-defined and coherent theoretical framework. This dimension involves drawing upon the principles of behavior analysis, such as reinforcement, punishment, shaping, and stimulus control, to guide the assessment and intervention process. ABA practitioners rely on establishing scientific principles and theories to inform their decision-making and design effective interventions. Then we have analytic. So analytic is data-based decisions. ABA seeks to establish a functional relationship between the behavior and the environmental factors that influence it. It involves conducting systematic assessments and experiments to determine whether the change in behaviors are a result of the intervention or due to other factors. By demonstrating experimental control, ABA ensures that the intervention used are effective and reliable. Generality, which is just generalization. So ABA seeks to produce behavior changes that is lasting and can be generalized across different environments. Is the behavior remaining consistent at home, at school, in the grocery store, out in public? So this dimension involves designing interventions that promote generalization and maintenance of the desired behavior beyond the incidental training context. ABA practitioners strive to ensure that the skills acquired through intervention are applicable and sustainable in various situations with different individuals. Then we have effective. is meaningful change occurring? ABA aims to produce meaningful and significant changes in behavior. This dimension involves evaluating and practical impact of the intervention on the individual's life and functioning. The effectiveness of this intervention is determined by measuring the extent to which the behavior of interest improves and has a positive impact on the person's daily life and overall well-being. So one of the biggest aspects of ABA is the data collection. It is a major role in our jobs. It's how we do our jobs, and it's what determines how we do our jobs in the future as the learners pick up on new skills. So, multiple ways that we use data collection include frequency, how many times we count and report the total, latency, how much time occurs between antecedent stimulus and responses. We start the timer after the antecedent and stop it when the response begins. Rate, which is the number of responses that occurred in a given amount of time. Rate equals count divided by time. It can be per hour, per minute, per month, etc. Duration is how long a response lasts. Percentage is the number of correct responses divided by the total number of opportunities. PIR, which is partial interval recording, which is where the time is broken into smaller chunks of time. Record the response if it happens at all the intervals. Whole interval recording, WIR, response happens the entire time. 5 minutes is broken into 1 minute intervals. Behavior lasts 1 entire minute. Then it's an occurrence for that 1 minute. MTS, momentary time sampling, occurrence happens only at the end of a time interval. And then PPM, permanent product measures. What's left over from a behavior occurring? So some more really important aspects of ABA include pairing, which is where we create happy learners. This is a process of associating yourself with good, fun things that are specific to each client. So if you have a client who really likes bubbles, you would consistently blow bubbles and then they would associate you with those bubbles. If you have a client that really enjoys snacks, you can bring snacks. It's finding what makes the client really happy and then pairing it with you. And that's building relationships. So to pair and find reinforcers, we use reinforcement assessments, finding what the client likes and discovering client-specific preferences for toys, food, activities, all kinds of things. As long as we're building that relationship, they need to be able to trust us in order for us to do our jobs. Direct preference assessments are free operants, which is where we allow the client to freely approach and react to things, and then we report how much time they engaged with each item. This lets us know which one they prefer more, which one they like to play with more. Paired stimulus, which is when we present stimulus in pairs. So if I present a ball and a teddy bear, I'd put them both on the table, and then the client gets to choose which one they prefer. The client is only allowed to pick one item at a time. Random items should be presented with all other items at least once. And we need to be prepared to mix it up because we don't want side preference occurring, which means that if we continuously place it on the right side, or they continuously choosing items on the right side type thing. So multiple stimulus without replacement, or MSWO, we lay out a line of items and allow the client to pick just one. Remove the one that they picked and lay everything out again all mixed up. Keep going until all the items are picked and arranging what's left each time to be picked again without replacing anything that was already picked until only one item is left. The order in which these items were picked is the preference order. So the very first one picked is the one that they prefer the most. And then indirect preference assessments, which include surveys, asking parents or caregivers, interviews, observations, stuff like that. It's basically secondhand knowledge or just observing. And then we use token economies, which I've mentioned before, but I've provided a link to an outside source for more information here also. But token economy is a behavior change system. It targets behaviors where they earn tokens that can be traded for reinforcement, or the token can be the reinforcement itself. I've seen this used in multiple classrooms. I've seen this used in daycares when potty training. It's basically kind of like sticker charts, or even just collecting items so if they can even be little tokens, like actual tokens that are given to the instructor in exchange for a bigger prize. So if they collect 5 tokens, that earns them a sucker, or whatever it is that they prefer. Some more aspects of ABA include reinforcements, which are consequences where there is a change in the behavior's environment after a particular response. So reinforcement is what we give to encourage the behavior. If your client likes YouTube videos, you would provide a YouTube video. If your client likes treats, you'd find some kind of treat like gummies or marshmallows or whatever it is that they prefer, and they would get one after they engage in the behavior that we are targeting. So it makes the behavior more likely to happen again in the future. In ABA, we use reinforcements to increase desired behaviors. Positive reinforcement is when a specific stimulus is added or presented or increased to increase desired behavior in the future. Negative reinforcement is when an unpleasant stimulus is removed. So an unpleasant stimulus could be the bright neon lights. If they are having trouble with those, you would turn the lights off to remove that stimulus. Antecedent stimuli is an irritant or an adversary. Reminder, negative in ABA does not mean bad. It means to remove. Negative means to take something away. It is not bad. Reinforcement of a desired behavior results in that type of response being more likely to happen again in the future. Socially mediated reinforcement is when another person provides the reinforcement. So if I were providing reinforcement to my client. Automatic is when the completion of a response is the reinforcer. So when you're thirsty, you go get a glass of water and you drink it. And the action of drinking the water is the reinforcement because now you are no longer thirsty. And you are learning that if you drink water or something else, you're no longer going to be thirsty. So it's an automatic reinforcement. Positive punishment is when a specific stimulus is presented or added or magnified, increased. And as a result, that type of response is less likely to happen again. Negative punishment is when a specific stimulus is removed, terminated, reduced, or lessened, and the stimulus is usually something the learner would prefer to keep. So negative does not mean bad, it means removed. As a result, that type of response is less likely to happen again in the future. So ABA uses a lot of prompting to help teach or scaffold. Prompting is an extra antecedent added to encourage the right response. It can be non-vocal or vocal. So we can use full physical prompting where a learner is guided through the whole response, which is like taking the learner's hand and doing hand-over-hand prompting to complete the task. Or it could be partial physical prompting, where it's only partially guided. So grabbing the learner's hand and placing it on an item, but then they complete the rest of the task themselves. So then there's verbal prompting, which is a verbal statement, and that could be full or partial also. So if you're trying to get your learner to say pencil, you can give a partial verbal statement of p, p, or you can give full verbal statement of pencil. Imitative or model prompt. So I would demonstrate what I expect and they would imitate it. Gestural prompt or movement prompt, which is pointing, looking, nodding. So if I have things lined out and I want them to pick a certain one, like in the video of DTT where the kid needed to pick car, I could point at the car, I could look at the car, or I could kind of nod at the car. Positional prompt is when I would place the car closer to them. I'd leave the other two items in the same spot and move the car closer, and they would get the gist of that's the one they're supposed to pick. So that's positional prompt. And then visual prompt would be using a picture or some kind of cue card that, hey, that car is what you're supposed to pick. Within ABA, there are multiple phases of learning. We start at baseline, which is data collection before teaching anything. This is just seeing where their skills are at and figuring out whether we need to teach a skill or not. Acquisition is the first steps to teaching a new skill. Mastery is correctly responding across repeated measurement periods. Maintenance is making sure that the skill happens after we've stopped teaching it. And then generalization, making sure the skill happens across all environments. Now, in each of these phases, you can use task modification or altering the demands or curriculum. You can alter the materials, you can reduce efforts required, you can make the demand more predictable, or you can deliver the demand at different times. Behaviors. So behaviors are kind of essential to the job. It's the whole basis of the job. So behaviors versus environment. Changing the environment can impact behavior. So behavior, the learner or person is engaging in a behavior. Behavior is anything someone does. Anything. Whatever you do is behavior. Me moving my hands right now is a behavior. So the environment is all the stimuli or events and conditions that can affect behavior. This includes both inside and outside of the body. So environment outside of the body can be my lights, the lights that I have right here in front of me, my computer. It can be my shirt, my hair. So my hair is actually a pretty good example. If it keeps getting in my face, I'm going to keep engaging in the behavior of moving it out of my face. But the inside behaviors, those can also affect learners. So if a learner has a stomach ache, they are going to engage in certain behaviors or even increase in undesired behaviors because they're reacting to pain or, not being comfortable. A headache is an inside environment. Anything that occurs within the body that can cause a reaction in behavior. So ABA has to remember that the environment is a very important aspect of behavior. And since we do a lot of play-based learning and practice, we have to make sure that we're managing the environment. So voice inflection, how we talk to them, the tone, gestures, everything that we do while engaging in learning, playing, or whatever we're doing can affect their behaviors. So we remember rock. Repeat what you say and do, offer opportunities for interaction, cue the learner to take the next step, keep play fun, and keep it going. Remember, inside environment matters. If a child starts to get bored with what you're doing or with your play, they are going to start engaging in behaviors. If they feel like they don't have a chance to engage, we are going to see behaviors. Everything we do matters. So there are quite a few theories that are used in special education that I picked up during my SPED 493 class. So to begin, we'll start with Rudolf Dreikurs. I hope I'm saying that correctly, but he believed in a democratic classroom, keeping students engaged in learning by having them be active and involved in the learning environment, giving students a sense of belonging and thinking of the group's well-being. This was established in 1972, and it can be used by teachers that aim to give students a sense of belonging. Different teaching styles cater to demographic classroom effectiveness. However, this can also be used in clinical settings with students with autism, ADHD, or ODD to help them feel like they have a sense of choice or ownership in their learning. And then Stephen Covey, he provides the frames of reference, which is looking at students' perspectives on topics, taking their hopes, fears, and realities into consideration during communications. He also proposes empathetic listening, so listening with attention to their emotions. This was proposed in 2004, and teachers in all educational settings, especially special education teachers, deal with communication barriers, emotional behavioral disorders, or other highly emotional situations. Guidance counselors, school psychologists, and other staff directly communicating with students. This can also be used by therapists and in other clinical settings. But in ABA, this can be used by actually trying to figure out how the students are feeling. As I mentioned previously, those inside environmental factors can affect the behaviors that we are dealing with. So empathetic listening really comes in handy there. Looking at frames of reference and figuring out how the student might be feeling or how the learner might be feeling is beneficial for everyone involved in an ABA setting. Some more theories used in special education include Ron Morris's real discipline, techniques that can be used to promote desirable behaviors, compliance training, which is teaching right from wrong, behavioral management, creating functional learning environments that minimize distractions and are engaging. He proposed these in 2005, and teachers that set rules and limitations with high expectations use these. Educators that have specific ideas and plans for the classroom, environment with clear set consequences. Behavior management is used in therapy settings like ABA. So then we have Harry and Rosemary Wong. In 1998, they proposed classroom roles and procedures, which is managing the classroom through clear procedures, routines, and direct plan for student behavior. This can be seen with behavioral intervention plans or setting routines and directly planning how sessions are going to go in ABA. It can be used by teachers in all settings, though. This helps establish clear expectations in gen ed classrooms, but maintains more routine and expectations in special education classrooms, too. This is also seen in those clinical settings for ABA, OT, speech, PT, and other services for autism and other cognitive delays. So then we have Paula Cook, and she proposes the rage cycle, which is an extreme display of anger or emotions that can be explained in phases and how to help in each phase. This could be useful for that extinction burst. She also suggests modifying sensory settings and redirection, both of which can be used in ABA. So she proposed this in the early 2000s. It's used in clinical settings like ABA, PT, speech, OT, and other therapeutic settings. Used by specialists in dealing with emotional and behavioral disabilities. It's also used by teachers who have students with medical or clinical diagnoses of learning disabilities, ADHD, sensory processing issues, bipolar, oppositional defiance disorder, and autism. And then finally, we have B.F. Skinner, who proposed behavior modification, which is shaping behaviors through reinforcement, which is exactly what ABA is. So this was proposed in 1950s. And it's more often seen in early childhood settings, and early elementary teachers use it a lot too. It's not as widely used anymore, though. So, some theories in ABA include behaviorism, which is a theoretical approach in psychology that emphasizes the role of environmental conditioning and influencing behavior. It suggests that all behaviors are either reflexes produced by response to certain stimuli or consequence of that individual's history, including reinforcement and punishment. Empiricism, which is the philosophical belief that knowledge comes primarily from sensory experiences. Empiricists propose that we can only know about the world through our senses and experiences, and that innate ideas that you're born with, do not exist. Then there's pragmatism, which is an American philosophy that emerged in the late 19th century. It's based on the principles of usefulness, workability, practicability, and ideas, policies, and proposals are the criteria of their merit. It emphasizes action over doctrine and suggests that beliefs are clarified through application and outcome. Then we have utilitarianism, which is a branch of moral philosophy which suggests that the best action is the one that maximizes utility, often defined as well-being or happiness. The right course of action, according to utilitarianism, is the one that results in the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Then we have social constructivism. This is a sociological theory of knowledge, according to which human development is socially situated, and knowledge is constructed through interaction with others. It posits that reality is not discovered, but rather constructed by society. So ideas are passed on from generation to generation, and experiences that you gain through talking to other people is how you build your ideas. Positive philosophy, our last one. This term often refers to Augustine Comte's positivism, a philosophical system recognizing only that which can be scientifically verified or logically proven, and therefore rejecting metaphysics and theism. It promotes positive thinking in the senses of affirming observable phenomena and empirical sciences. Throughout ABA, a little bit of each of these is spotted. It's kind of like a puzzle where bits and pieces of each one fit together to kind of create the overall idea behind what we do in ABA. Thanks for sticking with me so far. We're going to move into the interview portion of my presentation, and I was able to interview a BCBA named Rachel and 2 managing technicians, which were her assistants. And then I was also able to interview Ava Shaw from the Wisconsin Department of Education. We're going to kick things off with Rachel's interview. As I mentioned, Rachel is a board-certified behavioral analyst, and I asked her several questions to which she was gracious enough to answer. How do you think a background in education can contribute to my understanding of applied behavioral analysis? She stated, there are many similarities between education and ABA principles and practices. Many educators use ABA principles in their classroom daily. They just might not have been able to name them. Educators use ABA principles within their classroom behavior management systems, including antecedent strategies, reinforcement, group contingencies, token economies, and differential reinforcement. I think someone with a background in education will be able to pick up on ABA concepts quickly because they relate so closely to the strategies taught in educational programs. I also think someone with an educational background will be able to bring educational concepts into their direct work within ABA. Can you share specific coursework or training you have completed that directly relates to ABA principles and practices? Rachel stated, I got my undergraduate degree in health science, so I did not have coursework or training related to ABA principles then. In my graduate program, I took the following courses which directly taught ABA principles and practices. Those include Foundations of ABA, Behavioral Assessment, Ethics, Behavioral Change Procedures, and Research Methods. In addition to those courses, I took the following courses related to special education and other areas of supporting those disabilities, which also includes some ABA principles and practices, standards, practices, and research in special education, assessment across the lifespan, evidence-based strategies for K through 12, quality of life, legal issues in special education, human motivation in organizations, and counseling issues in special needs. While in my graduate program, I was lucky to work in school districts that participated in Dr. Greg Hanley's BCBA Practical Functional Assessment and Skill-Based Treatment for Implementers program. With this program, I participated in a 10-hour training weekly meetings with Dr. Hanley, colleagues who were also BCBAs to report progress on targets, students, and troubleshoot issues, and directly implemented a practical functional assessment and skills-based treatment. I have also completed over 32 continuing education credits related to ABA and education. What knowledge or skills have you gained through your education or job experience that you believe are valuable in implementing ABA interventions? Some of the most valuable skills I have learned through my job experience are not even directly related to ABA principles and procedures. I feel that interpersonal skills, organization, time management, and delivering and accepting feedback have been most valuable to me to complete all of my job requirements. I feel that I was mostly prepared clinically for my current role through my education and countless hours of studying for the BCBA exam, but the skills I listed above had to be learned through experimentation and mentorship through past and current job experiences. These skills are necessary to implement ABA interventions effectively, accurately, and in a timely manner. How familiar are you with the foundational concepts and theories of ABA? What are the most important theorists in ABA, and what are their contributions? I feel very familiar in the foundational concepts and theories of ABA as they are integrated part of what I do in my role daily. I also spend every free moment of 2 straight months studying concepts for a BCBA exam 2 years ago, and those will forever stick with me because of that. B.F. Skinner was the most important figure in ABA, and his contributions are the foundations of ABA. The basis of Skinner's research showed that behavior isn't just influenced by what happens before it, but it's also influenced by what follows, the reinforcements or the punishments. 5. How did your education contribute to your understanding of the concepts of reinforcement, prompting, and shaping behavior? I feel that my graduate program had a large focus on behavioral contingencies and the importance of reinforcement, possibly more than any other topic. I'm sure I learned about prompting and shaping behavior in my graduate program, but I remember really learning about those principles and using them in practice while I was teaching paraprofessionals about them when I worked as a behavior technician in school settings. I created presentations and materials about those two principles specifically, so those really stick with me from what I was able to teach others about them. 7. Can you tell me about any of the research or projects you have undertaken during your education that involves ABA principles and what you learned from those experiences? One project I completed, which I briefly discussed above, was a training series for paraprofessionals working with students with disabilities in school settings. This project had 3 components: short training videos, live training, one-page visual handouts, and working alongside school teams to follow up with paraprofessionals and provide additional one-on-one training if needed. In addition to prompting and shaping, I also created training for antecedent strategies for escape-maintained behavior, behavioral momentum, and collecting ABC data. Besides learning more about these ABA principles through research for the training and through teaching others, I also learned how to communicate ABA jargon in a clear manner to effectively present on a topic and answer questions in the moment, and that importance of time management to complete a large project on time. As far as research goes, I didn't get to directly participate in research in my graduate program. However, as a graduate assistant, I supported our PhD candidates by coding research videos and creating graphs based on their results. Continuing with Rachel's interview. Number 8. In what ways have you applied your education in ABA to real-world settings such as classrooms, home, or clinical environments? I think besides the obvious use of my education in the clinical role I have now and in my past school setting role, I've been able to use my education in ABA in my own home. I frequently catch myself using ABA principles such as differential reinforcement, prompts and antecedents, and consequence strategies on both of my dogs and family members. How do you think I could use my educational background to develop strategies for assessing and addressing challenging behaviors in individuals? I think having a background in education will be beneficial for assessing and addressing challenging behaviors because you already possess the critical thinking skills to identify problems and problem-solving solutions. 10. What training have you received in data collection and analysis, and how has this knowledge influenced your ability to evaluate effectiveness of ABA interventions? Outside of the direct education I received in my graduate program, I've also had training in data collection as a behavioral technician in a home-based setting and in a school-based setting. I've also learned a lot about data collection from teaching others in my current role and my past school-based roles. Data analysis was something I don't remember too much from my graduate program. I didn't have to analyze data in my school-based role either. I learned the most through self-teaching while studying for the BCBA exam and through my current role. For myself, I learned the best through doing and through teaching others. In my current role, I've taught myself to assess trend lines and graphs and to intervene for challenging levels of a duration of time or if the data suddenly is decreasing. I try to analyze client graphs as often as possible so that I'm able to intervene as quickly as I can. If an intervention is not working and no changes are being made, it's a waste of time and energy for not only the direct support staff, but for those receiving the intervention as well. As I gain experience with analyzing data, I'm able to identify when changes need to be made faster than I was even 6 months ago. 11. Can you describe any experiences during your education or career that involved collaborating with other professionals, such as teachers, special education teachers, or other therapists such as speech, OT, or PT? When I worked in the school setting, I collaborated with teachers, special education teachers, speech therapists, OTs, PTs, and/or social workers daily. I've worked directly with these professionals to train them in ABA procedures, create behavior intervention plans with them, create goals during IEP meetings, and make environmental changes for student success. In my current role, I collaborate mostly with teachers, special education teachers, and speech therapists. I've interviewed teachers and special education teachers on clinical behavior in the school setting, met with them to provide suggestions they can make in their classroom, get ideas for goals to work on in the clinical setting that will support clients in the classroom, and directly train them on behavior intervention plans. With speech therapists, I typically seek information from them on how to best use certain communication methods with my clients and to get ideas for goals that can support their speech goals. Interview with Rachel continued. Number 12. How has your education prepared you to effectively communicate and collaborate with parents, caregivers, schools, staffs, teachers, and others involved in the treatment process? Since my graduate education was more focused on behavioral reduction, there's not much I remember about directly interacting and collaborating with people involved in a child's treatment, unfortunately. This is something I've had to put a large focus on in my professional career due to the lack of education. When I worked in a school setting, the behavior team was seen as an integrated part of the special education department, so communication and collaborative came naturally. As a clinical BCBA now, I find many school staff and teachers are apprehensive about communicating and collaborating with anyone involved with ABA. Whenever I met a new school staff member or teacher, I made sure to be an open listener and provide reinforcement for current practices in their classroom. When I do make suggestions, I try to keep in mind the job responsibilities they currently have and first suggest interventions that can be seamlessly added to their classroom routine. I try to introduce one or two suggestions at a time and focus on what the school staff or teacher deem as the most important to work on first. From my experience, it's best to build solid relationships with someone before asking them anything, like making changes to their routine and supporting a student. The same ideology goes for parents. If you were to walk into a house and tell a parent everything they're doing wrong and everything they need to change without building a relationship, there's a good chance that parent would never let you come back in their house. Parents truly know their children best, and they're the ones that see them the most. So it's more important for parent feedback and ideas you can work into your suggestions and parent goals. The more successful they will be, and the more buy-in they will have with the entire ABA program. Can you describe any experience or coursework you had that focuses on assessing and addressing the unique needs of individuals with disabilities or developmental disorders? I've had lots of education and practice with assessing individuals with disabilities, including assessing personal preferences, assessing reinforcer effectiveness, assessing challenging behaviors, and assessing behaviors to increase. I feel that my education did a good job at addressing needs when it comes to challenging behaviors, but I needed more experience through my working career in addressing behaviors to increase. 14. How has your education or work experience helped you understand the ethical considerations and professional standards associated with practicing ABA? I took a course on ethics where we reviewed each ethical code in extreme detail. While this class was not the most exciting in my graduate coursework, I understand the details of the ethic code was good foundation for utilizing it within practice in my past roles and current roles. When I began studying for the BCBA exam, I thought there would be questions about the specific ethical codes, and that's what I began to study. I took exam study courses. I learned that there would not be specific ethical code questions, and instead, each question on the exam would first need to be looked at ethically before you can look at it clinically. At first, I didn't understand why there wouldn't be specific ethical code related questions, and was terrified that the questions would try to trick me. After taking the exam, and as I've gained more experience as a BCBA, I realized how important it was to look at every situation ethically before even thinking of them and addressing them clinically. And finally, 16. Can you provide an example of how your educational background has influenced your problem-solving skills in the context of implementing ABA strategies? I'm not sure if this is the best example I have, but it's something that really made me think during school and something I think back on often. In one of my classes, we needed to create a behavioral change plan and write a paper on it. I chose to attempt to teach my dog to heel using clicker training. I set up a beautiful procedure that included my data collection method, shaping the healing response, differential reinforcement, a generalization plan, and a maintenance plan. What I didn't consider was how difficult the procedure was to complete. While walking my dog, I needed to hold the clicker, the treats, and my phone to collect data, which made it difficult to focus on actually teaching the skill. I had to change my entire procedure so that it could actually be implemented by one person. I got rid of the clicker and just used treats, created a plan to systematically fade reinforcement, and recorded us walking back and forth so data could be collected after the walk. The assignment was frustrating for me because I wasted so much time up front creating the procedure before even testing it. I've carried this into my career to test procedures before finalizing them and to try to implement them myself before teaching them to others. When I need to problem solve certain interventions, I focus on solutions that can be easily carried out before more difficult solutions are suggested. If I didn't implement the procedure myself, I wouldn't expect someone else to implement it. I would like to say thank you to Rachel for providing me with such valuable feedback that I was able to connect what you had said to previous slides in my research throughout this entire project. This slide contains the interview with Caitlin Bowen. She is a managing technician with Wisconsin Early Autism Project and works directly under Rachel. How do you think a background in education can contribute to my understanding of applied behavioral analysis? Having a background in education helps with providing an open mindset to continue learning from every possibility. Not only are you teaching others, but you're also learning and growing as an individual and a professional. Each person that we work with is different from the previous individual we encountered, and it's important that we not only adapt to working with them in beneficial ways, but also that we learn from our experiences with others. 2. Can you share specific coursework or training that you have completed that directly relates to ABA principles and practices? In undergrad, I took a class on disabilities in society, in which the class discussed how different disabilities are viewed and or treated across different societal experiences. The professor challenged the students of the class to not only observe their own biases towards the inclusivity, but also try to find materials to depict the experiences of both those with the disability and society. This was one of my favorite classes throughout my college experience, as it forced me from the individual perception of the world. I experienced being empathetic to others and working on problem solving to be part of the solution. How has your education in psychology, special education, or a related field prepared you to work effectively with the individuals with behavioral challenges? Having gone through a 4-year program that went through the different social sciences, helped me to understand what individual behaviors are not always a personal response. The way that others engage with and perceive the world around them is different from my own experiences. When a challenging behavior occurs, not only could the reaction be from other stimuli that I react to differently, but there could be other experiences the individual is responding to that I'm unaware of at the moment. Having this mindset during challenging behaviors has allowed me to be patient and empathetic while trying to find a solution for the individual. What knowledge or skills have you gained through your education or job experiences that you believe are invaluable in implementing ABA interventions? When training for my first job in ABA field, one of the most memorable pieces of advice I received was, if you have met one child with autism, you have met one child with autism. As I continued in the field and began working with more clients and technicians, I have come to realize that neurotypical and neurodivergent people alike all have their own experiences that make them different from one another. As I continue to work with others, I continue to grow and learn so I can be as supportive and knowledgeable as possible to adapt not only to situations I may face, but also to others as I work with. 5. How familiar are you with the foundational concepts and theories of ABA? What are the most important theories or theorists in ABA, and what are their contributions? Our company teaches the foundational concepts and theories of ABA through several different types of training that continue throughout employment with the company. We focus on the studies and findings of classical conditioning and the use of reinforcements to increase behavior. 6. How do you think I could use my educational background to develop strategies for assessing and addressing challenging behaviors in individuals? Throughout your educational background, you have been exposed to many individuals, teaching tools, and learning experiences. While I have previously stated that no two individuals are the same, some of these tools and experiences can be used, generalized, and adapted to help others when similar situations occur. 7. How has your education prepared you to effectively communicate and collaborate with parents, caregivers, school staff, teachers, or others involved in the treatment process? Secondary education has prepared me for the mature and professional correspondence with parents, colleagues, and other service providers. However, when it comes to communicating with clients, I had to adjust how to communicate once I began working at this job. Similarly, as I have previously stated, you are never done learning. And as I started working with younger individuals, I had to adjust my language and means of communication to better support and teach kids I engage with daily. I would like to say thank you to Caitlin for providing me with such insightful answers that I was able to connect to all of my learning throughout this semester. So, thanks. This interview is with Kayla Kephart, another managing technician that works under Rachel. How do you think a background in education can contribute to my understanding of applied behavioral analysis? I think seeing how things are done in classrooms and how ABA can be implemented for kids with autism could be very helpful. 2. Can you share specific coursework or training that you have completed that directly relates to ABA principles and practices? I had 40 hours of training when I was hired in 2017, continued training, and then did an internship through Wisconsin Early Autism Project that expanded my knowledge of ABA. 3. What knowledge or skills have you gained through your education or job experience that you believe are valuable in implementing ABA interventions? Real-life, hands-on practice as a technician. Then going through the internship process with WEEP, completing and practicing real-life skills. 4. How familiar are you with the foundational concepts and theories of ABA? What are the most important theories or theorists in ABA, and what are their contributions? Very little to somewhat. It's honestly not a huge part of my job. I had to learn about it during my internship, which was almost 3 years ago, but I haven't had to really do anything with it since then. I can recognize names when we talk about them during meetings. 5. How has your education prepared you to effectively communicate and collaborate with parents, caregivers, school staff, teachers, and others involved in the treatment process? My education didn't really play a part in this, since I do not have any sort of specialization in ABA. My hands-on experience has helped me with this real-life practice of talking with parents, caregivers, school staff, teachers, and others with support from BCBAs. 6. Can you describe any experience or coursework that you had that focused on assessing and addressing the unique needs of individuals with disabilities or developmental disorders? I took an abnormal psychology class and a disability class when I completed my undergrad degree. All of my experience working closely with children with autism has been working with WEEP for 6.5 years. I'd like to say thank you to Kayla for participating in this interview. I found it very insightful and helpful also. So I reached out to Ava Shaw with the Department of Public Instruction and asked her if she could provide any insight on how the school systems utilize BCBAs within the school districts, or if there were any programs that they referred parents to. This was the response that she gave me. Thank you for your inquiry. The Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, DPI, is a state agency that advances public education in libraries in Wisconsin. We aim to ensure that every child graduates ready for further education and the workplace. The special education team within the Division of Learning Support provides guidance, educational resources, webinars, and trainings for students identified with special education needs. We do not offer particular programs. One piece of guidance that you might find interesting is the Department of Public Instruction and the Department of Health Services Joint Guidance for Behavioral Treatment for School-Aged Youth. DHS and DPI policies permit collaboration between behavioral treatment providers and school personnel in accordance with local school district policies. School districts have the authority to create local policies governing school access afforded to behavioral treatment providers. However, it is the responsibility of school staff to address educational needs identified in a student's IEP, and this responsibility may not supplant by behavioral treatment from an outside provider. The DPI collaborates with other agencies and supports conferences and other learning events to improve adult practice in meeting the neurodiverse needs of students with IEPs, including through the DPI resource to support neurodiversity student webpage. The DPI also provides support to schools, families, and community members through the IDEA discretionary grant, the supporting neurodiversity students professional learning system. While not associated with DPI, Wisconsin is home to several autism societies that provide resources, references, and support for families. Autism Society of Greater Wisconsin, Autism Society of Southeastern Wisconsin. There are also several agencies that provide resources and behavioral treatment. We know from families and self-advocates that for some children, ABA is very effective. For some children and families, it's not a good fit, and they may find it too focused on eliminating behaviors instead of teaching and building new skills. The Wisconsin Early Autism Project, ABA of Wisconsin. At this point, we're going to move into the observations portion of the presentation. I was able to conduct educational observations, allowing me to see where a child's zone of proximal development is and what structure needs to be put in place to meet the goals and accomplish developmental milestones. I was also able to conduct observations in ABA settings, allowing me to probe for information, see where the client's current skill levels are, and build a treatment plan that benefits the client. It tells me what she can and cannot accomplish and what we need to apply more focus on and work on. There is a similar common goal of conducting observations in both education and ABA. The skills I learned for ECE observations are actually very beneficial to ABA. So these are two educational observations I was able to take. They were conducted on October 10th, around 9 to 10 in the morning. So the developmental domain is something that we look at in educational observations. And these two, it was the social and emotional domain and the language and development of communication domain. The observations included X coloring with other children. The teacher tells him that it's time to clean up. X refuses to put the crayons away. He begins throwing a fit, throwing crayons and knocking papers off the table. He then starts screaming at the top of his lungs. X is removed from the classroom to an office across the hall where he continued his tantrum for another 20 minutes. The analysis for this is that X is clearly not communicating his emotions and demonstrating appropriate social behaviors. So for this instance, we would find ways for him to communicate in a way that's acceptable. I would write up learning plans or learning goals that would be able to help target that skill for him. Then the other observation is while practicing X's name with him, he writes all his letters by tracing them on a dry erase board. He writes left to right. Upon finishing the last letter in his name, he returns and tells me each letter. He gets stuck on one of the letters. I make the sound the letter makes, and he could identify it correctly and move on. The analysis for this is that X recognizes letters and sounds in his own name. I could write up lesson plans that help encourage this learning, to incorporate more alphabetic tools, games, play-based practices that would encourage the learning in this process. Some more educational observations. These ones occurred on October 19th, all of them around 9 to 11 o'clock in the morning. The developmental domains were health and physical development, cognition and general knowledge, and approaches to learning. For the first observation at around 9 a.m., X is told to get ready to go outside. At 9:02, he goes to the cubby and grabs his shoes. At 9:03, he sits down and gets his shoes on. At 9:10, he grabs his coat and pulls it on unassisted as well. About 2 minutes later, he asks for help zipping up his coat. The analysis is that X is able to dress himself with minimal assistance. For the next one, X is playing a board game Trouble with daycare staff. X hits the middle button part to roll the dice. The dice piece stops and X hits it again. Daycare staff corrects X by telling him to push it once and move his game piece. X hits it again, looks at the dice, shouts 2, and grabs the game piece and moves it 2 places while counting out loud. X moves to hit the dice bubble again, but the daycare staff corrects him, saying it was her turn. The analysis is that X is able to process information and recognize the number 2 and even count it out. More lesson plans can be written to help encourage this behavior and keep it going. Or to move into the next phase of things, making sure he can recognize more than just the number 2. And then finally, we have an observation for approaches to learning where X is playing a syllable counting game. He is segmenting words and counting out the syllables. He places the game board pieces in corresponding baskets of the word that he works on according to how many syllables he counts. About 10 minutes later, he clips all the game pieces back on the side of the board and then counts them all. He counts 24 pieces and then started the syllable segmenting game over. The analysis for this is that X demonstrates his ability to experiment and practice learned skills to expand on them. So now we have some ABA observations. This one occurred on October 9th, around 9:30 in the morning. The client is 2 years old with a diagnosis of autism. The observation is that the client is across the room when the BT says come to table, but the client does not turn or look at the BT and does not come to the table. BT moves closer to the client, getting into their line of sight, and repeats the SD, come to table. They make eye contact and move to the table to work. The analysis is that the data recorded for the SD will be XP, which is incorrect and prompt. This is a skill that needs to be worked on more. We will continue to work on this until they meet the criteria for mastery and independently come to the table to work without needing prompting. So another ABA observation, this one occurred on the 9th around almost 11 a.m. The client is 2 years old with a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. The observation was that the client was presented with a new activity, playing in shaving cream. The client has sensory issues with getting their hands dirty, but also does not like water, so this activity pushes boundaries and gives them a reason to wash their hands. The client stares at the shaving cream, watching the BT touch it, and shows them it's okay to play with it. The client imitates the BT's actions and pokes one finger into the shaving cream. The client shows interest and begins to place their whole hand in. The client looks at their hand and begins to wipe it on the table. The client then starts screaming and wiping. BT brings a bowl of water over to show the client that they can dip their hands in to wash them off. The client refuses to dip their hands in. BT continues to attempt the water play with no success. BT is able to clean the client's hands off with a baby wipe. So the analysis for this would be that the client used the behavior of screaming to alert to discomfort. The consequence was the BT allowing them to be done with the shaving cream. The client would not put their hands in the water, and the behavior of pulling their hands away resulted in the consequence of the BT using baby wipes instead of placing their hands in the water. This could be used as a probe to see if we need to create an SD for the goal that would allow us to work on water tolerance. The data shows that it would be beneficial for the client to work on water tolerance. A simple starting point SD could be something like touch the water with an extremely shallow plate of water that their fingertips could just dip into. And that would kind of help introduce the idea. So behavioral intervention plans, or BIPs, have been mentioned multiple times throughout this presentation. This is a sample behavioral plan for a client named Kendrick Doe. Next to that, you would see where the BCBA or the managing technician's name would be. The targeted behavior for this client is self-injurious behavior. The operational definition, which is where we clearly and precisely describe the behavior, includes movement of body part or item towards self or movement of self towards item with enough force that when contact is made, a sound is made and or a mark is left. So this operational definition allows anyone to come in, read it, and know exactly what we are looking for. That allows for generalization, accurate data collection, observations, and recreation. So the data measurement is rate, which is where we count how many times it occurs. The client-specific materials include the AAC device, being always within their reach, provide breaks or cards that say all done when the BP and the BP has backup, or BT has backup. And then we have visual schedules and first then boards. So the hypothesized function of the behavior, the reason we think that Kendrick is engaging in self-injurious behavior is to escape a task or get out of doing whatever it is that he's finding difficult at that time. The functions are determined by open-ended functional assessment interviews. And then we have antecedent strategies. We use these prior to target behavior occurring throughout the session. So we have environmental arrangement. We have preferred activities and AAC device out, additional break, help, or all done cards, visuals, or the first then boards. Everything is available for when the AAC is in use for other targets. Breaks are provided throughout tasks and activities. Then we have the visual schedule. Review the visual schedule with Kendrick at the beginning of the session and with each transition. So every time we finish a task, we go back to the visual schedule and go, okay, we finished this, now we're going to this. And then pre-MAC. Prior to beginning adaptive routines, display first, then visuals with tasks and chosen activities. So first we do this, then you get to do this. And then we have the consequence strategies, immediate responses to occurrences on target behaviors. We have redirection, so we would redirect Kendrick back to the task at hand. And prompting, we would prompt Kendrick to use his AAC or his functional communication cards to tell us that he's all done or that he needs a break or that he needs help. And then we have replacement behaviors, which is a teaching strategy. So we have functional communication tools, and those are the cards that say, I need a break, I'm all done, I need help. Any way that he can communicate that he is overwhelmed or that he's just done. So then there's a space for additional notes, and then at the bottom it says that Kendrick has no emergency plan at this time. The behavior intervention plan is usually reviewed with the caregivers and signed by the BCBA. And this is kept on file for the client at all times and is accessed by anyone on his team. So, if you have stuck with me this entire time, I want to say thank you. Thank you for engaging with this presentation. Thank you for giving me your time, and I hope you found it useful or you were able to learn and take away some very important aspects. I hope it was able to answer any questions you might have had about what ABA is, and I want to say thank you for just allowing me to present this information. So throughout this entire semester, I came into this Senior Capstone Project knowing that at the end of it, I wanted to enter into a master's program to become a BCBA. At the beginning of the semester, I had little knowledge on what that entailed. So this entire project was able to help me figure out what I needed to do, what steps I needed to take, and how I could plan for my future. Sitting here now, I am about to graduate from my Senior Capstone Project and my senior year at University of Superior. And in February, I will be starting at Capella in their Masters of ABA program with a specialization in autism. I have already been conditionally accepted, and I just want to say thank you to my teacher, Amanda Zabadnik, for allowing me to put together this presentation and giving me the opportunity, the tools, and the guidance to help me learn and grow during this entire learning experience. Thank you for coming on this journey with me, and thank you for supporting me even back whenever I was a special education student and you were my advisor. And thank you for encouraging me to go with what I felt was right. So at the end of this presentation, I can confidently say that I made the right choice. I look forward to moving into the master's program at Capella, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds for me. Thank you, everyone involved.